For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
WBSM presents The Tim Weisberg Show, streaming live on WBSM.com and the WBSM app. Call 508-996-0500. Send us app chat messages and open line voicemails using the WBSM app. Now, The Tim Weisberg Show.
Good morning. Happy Monday to you. Welcome into a new week on the program. Hope your morning's starting off well. Hope your weekend went well. And, of course, we do lead off the show with U2. That's Beautiful Day. And it was a beautiful day this weekend out there in Las Vegas when they wrapped up their 40 shows at the Sphere. And I got to see exactly 0 of them. So I guess I can wait for the concert film that they recorded over the past couple of shows. So I'll just have to wait for that to come out. I'll be like all those Taylor Swift fans. I couldn't get tickets to the Eras tour and had to settle for going to see the movie. Maybe they'll have a U2 popcorn bucket and cup for me. But from everything that I saw on those shows this past weekend, it looked like it was a really good time. So it should make for a really good concert film. I just don't know how you capture the scope of, well, I know one way they could. Maybe it'll be a VR release. I could deal with that. Anyway, we have a lot that we can discuss this morning. Coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, we will turn on the light with Jack Spillane, as we do every Monday morning. And he has a very interesting column this week about the number of empty buildings in downtown New Bedford on the heels of the news that the General Services Administration is looking to close down the federal building in downtown New Bedford. Jack looks at all of the vacancies that are downtown and what some of the plans are for some of them and the lingering questions about others. So we'll talk with him about that, as well as some other things. There was a lot of news over the weekend, a couple of fires. But that story about what happened on Friday night, and in case you haven't heard in the news there with Phil, we do have the story at WBSM.com and on the WBSM app. But Friday night, the Old Rochester girls basketball team traveled to Watertown for a state tournament game. And during that game, actually in the very closing seconds of that game, which, Old Rochester fought valiantly, but lost the game. The game wasn't in question by this point. The final score was 47-28. So by this point, the game was well in hand for Watertown. But one of the officials was in the middle of making a call when he collapsed. He reportedly had a heart attack right there on the court as he was making this call. And so officials cleared the gymnasium of all the fans and all the players, and they had everybody leave the court so that they could work on him. His name is Don McGillicuddy. He is a 34-year veteran referee. 24 years, rather, sorry. And so they cleared out the gym so they could try to revive him, which they were able to do. But then on his way to the hospital in the ambulance, he had a second heart attack and passed away. So the MIAA put out a statement in which it says the MIAA expresses condolences to the family of the game official, which, by the way, it wasn't like they were being cold in that statement by not naming him. They were protecting the privacy of the family. The family later identified him to the local media. But the MIAA expresses condolences to the family of the game official and will continue to provide support to its officials, member schools, student athletes, coaches, and fans affected by this tragedy. Both the Watertown High School and Old Rochester Regional High School will have counselors available today for any students that need to discuss what happened. But I checked in with Old Rochester coach Rick Regan yesterday to find out how the team was handling it. And he called it a sudden and surreal moment, and that everyone was stunned. And that the girls are doing well right now, but the school is providing opportunities for anyone to reach out for counseling if necessary. And Coach Regan also said that Watertown did a commendable job under difficult circumstances in handling that situation. So I've been at games before. You know, I spent about 20 years covering high school sports. And so I've been at games where things like this have happened. Not necessarily an official, but there was a high school football game that I covered, actually a Thanksgiving Wareham-born game, where a gentleman went back to his car after the game and had a heart attack and passed away. One of the most, anybody who's a sports writer for a long enough period of time, you see injuries happen that are, unfortunately, they look really bad. Now, the good thing is when you're dealing with young kids, high school age kids, the most gruesome injury is something they can usually come back from. I mean, it's amazing. I've seen kids get injured and say, well, that's it. Their career is over, and they're back by the end of the season because of the way that kids can just heal. But there was a game that I covered, and it was the first time that I'd ever seen someone get a concussion, that I was aware of the fact that this person has a concussion. I came up as a sports writer before we had all these concussion protocols in place, and when, if you got hit in the head, you got your bell rung. And you might sit out for a play or two, but then you went back in. I was covering a Fairhaven-Wareham girls basketball game. This is, early 2000s. And one of the Fairhaven girls, their center, got knocked to the floor and her head bounced off the court. And everybody knew how brutal it was when they saw it, but she got right back up, which was probably not the best idea in hindsight, because for the next couple of plays, she had no idea where she was. Her team was running back to the other side, running back to their side of the court, and she was standing where she was. Like, she just was totally confused and out of it. And then I saw someone from the staff, or maybe it was one of her teammates, go over to check on her, and she just started throwing up everywhere. And they had to take her off the court and I believe take her to the hospital. And that was probably one of the most concerning things that I ever saw. There was the time that I got injured covering a game. I went to write about a kid that was playing for the Whaling City Youth Baseball League down at Brooklawn Park. And this kid was a phenomenal hitter. So I went down to cover the game that he was playing, to kind of interview him, interview his parents, get kind of some scene setter stuff for the story. And because it was summertime and daytime, or the sun was going to be out, and I said, I'm going to ride my motorcycle to the game. So I took my bike from Wareham to New Bedford. All I needed was my notebook and my tape recorder, because Mike Valeri was there taking some photos. And I'm standing off the side of the diamond, kind of along the third baseline, with Mike Valeri as he's taking photos, and we're talking about, what a good hitter this kid is and all this stuff. And as I'm standing there talking to Mike, the batter hits just a line drive directly into my temple. It didn't knock me out, but hit me really hard. So hard that it left an impression. And of course, Mike took a quick photo, but it left the indentation of the stitches of the baseball on the side of my head. And I got a good size egg. Mike was like, "Are you all right? Are you okay?" I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. He's like, "You sure you're okay?" It's youth sports, so it's not like there's an athletic trainer there that's going to come over and take a look at me. I'm like, I'm fine. I wasn't seeing double. I wasn't seeing stars. I felt like everything was okay. Conducted my interviews after the game, got everything that I needed. Got on my bike and started driving home. Got on the highway and said, I don't think I should be driving. I wasn't dizzy. But I just felt like kind of foggy. And I ended up getting home and making it home safely. But then I went into the house and I said, well, I'm not going to sit down and write the story now. I just feel kind of off. And then all I could remember was the stories that say, if you think you have a concussion, don't go to sleep. But by this point, I'm home. It's like 9 o'clock at night. I've got to get ready to go to bed because I was waking up early the next morning to cook for my day job. And I said, I don't know if I should go to sleep. And I ended up staying up for like an hour or so and then just ended up zonking out and falling asleep. I was fine, but still. So I've seen it happen to people. I've had it happen to me, but nothing like what the Old Rochester girls went through on Friday night. I was thinking about it. I didn't know. I wasn't alive at the time, but apparently my grandfather had a heart attack once at Fenway Park and had to be taken out from the park with the first responders. He was okay. He lived for another 40-something years afterward. But I'm sure that was a scary thing for people around him to witness. So I hope that the Old Rochester girls are okay. Obviously what happened is sad, and obviously our thoughts and prayers are with the McGillicuddy family. But if you have a child that played in that game or attended that game as a fan, know that the school will have counselors available today if those students need to speak with someone about what happened. Thankfully, I'm sure by the time they all went back out onto the court and wrapped things up, they probably were aware that he had been revived. they probably didn't get word of his passing until after the game, but still a very somber moment. And certainly one, and Rick Regan, the coach, said this, basketball took a back seat to what was going on. 508-996-0500 if you want to call in. You can also send in app chat messages and open line voicemails on the WBSM app. Right now, though, I'm going to take my first break of the morning, and we'll be back in just a few moments. And welcome back in. Say, I got the chance to do a little paranormal investigating on Saturday night. Maybe we'll talk about that a bit at some point this morning, but I was able to go over to the Oliver House in Middleborough. I was invited by Stephanie Burke, my friend and Spooky South Coast co-host. She was doing one of her Sitting with Spirits events where she holds a Victorian-era table-tipping seance. And during those events, no matter where she does it, it's usually more about the people that go making connections with their loved ones who have passed. And I'm not so good with dealing with people when they're all sitting around and crying and all that kind of stuff. So what I do is when I go with her for those, I sit around and I watch, and I'm interested in, seeing who comes through. But then once things start to get emotional, I'm like SpongeBob. I'm going to head out. I get up and I move out of the room and start walking around and exploring. And so, but also at the same time, we were hearing these voices and footsteps coming from other parts of the house where nobody was. So I went off and started looking into some of that myself. And then Christy Parrish, who runs the investigations over there and runs all the events over there, she came and joined me. And it was pretty cool getting some direct interaction. But if you've never been to the Oliver Estate in Middleborough, I recommend going for one of their day tours. This is a place that Benjamin Franklin visited. And it's where, when Benjamin Franklin visited, he ended up ruining the reputation of the Oliver family. Judge Peter Oliver was a very important man in colonial Massachusetts, but he was also a loyalist who wasn't public about that. He was keeping it a secret from the Sons of Liberty and sending all of the correspondence back to the royal court about what the Sons of Liberty were planning. And apparently there were some letters that were kept in a closet in the Oliver Estate. And when Ben Franklin came, he was handed those letters and said, here, send these, give these to the Sons of Liberty so they know what's going on. And he did so, and that pretty much ruined the reputation of the Oliver family. And then the Olivers gave way to the Sproat family, who ended up living in the home for generations. And then it came into the ownership of the town of Middleborough, but they just let it, by that point, it had deteriorated and they were going to raise it. The town was going to just knock it all down and do something else with the land. But through the efforts of mostly the paranormal investigators who want to go there and investigate and communicate with the spirits there, they've been able to restore that building, redo the roof, redo the exterior, put in indoor plumbing. And so I always point to that as the shining example of what, when people are like, why do you do all this stuff? And you go to all these places, and it's like, yeah, it's going and having people maybe have a paranormal experience is part of it. But the real part of it is that we're able to restore and maintain these historic locations. Otherwise, it would have already been a parking lot or a park or torn down to become a McDonald's or whatever they would have done with it. But instead, it gets to live on as this historic heritage museum that people can visit. So check it out. It has a Facebook page. And, of course, you can make reservations with the town of Middleborough and all of that to be able to check it out during the day. And then, of course, Christy is always looking for folks that want to join in paranormal events, whether it be renting out the house themselves or taking part in some of the nights that they do. They have pro nights for people who are experienced. They have amateur nights for people who have never done it before. Well, they will lead you on a paranormal investigation. All right, right now, though, it is time to go into the newsroom with somebody who is paranormal in their own right and get all the headlines of the day from Phil Devitt.
eyes on the Supreme Court this morning. Nikki Haley gets her first primary win, and scientists discover the world's largest snake in Australia.
From the WBSM Newsroom, this is WBSM News.
The Supreme Court is due to issue at least one decision this morning, and it could be a big one. The ruling may be the case of former President Trump's eligibility for Colorado's presidential primary ballot. NBC's Lawrence Hurley.
The reason for that is that partly the case is being heard on an expedited basis, and second, that the Colorado primary is obviously being held on Tuesday. So there's a reason why the court might want to get this out ahead of that.
The opinion or opinions will be posted online at 10 a.m. Eastern. Nikki Haley takes the win in Washington, D.C.'s GOP primary. She took 63% of the primary vote to Trump's 33%. The former UN ambassador has lost every race so far to Republican frontrunner Donald Trump, including her home state of South Carolina. Haley has maintained for weeks that she will stay in the race at least through Super Tuesday, which is tomorrow. Massachusetts Air National Guard member Jack Texera is expected to plead guilty today to charges related to the leaking of military secrets. A change of plea hearing is scheduled to take place in Boston federal court. The Dighton man is accused of posting classified military information to a group of gamers on social media. Malaysia's Ministry of Transport says the search for Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 may be revived with the 10th anniversary of the mysterious disappearance approaching. Mark Mayfield has the story.
The company Ocean Infinity is offering another no-find, no-fee search of the southern Indian Ocean seabeds 5 years after it ended its private search. Transport Minister Anthony Loke said that if credible evidence is presented, the Malaysian government will do everything possible to get approval for a new contract. The Boeing 777 plane disappeared from radar shortly after takeoff in 2014, carrying 239 people. Satellite data indicated that the plane veered off from its flight path, with the most credible explanation being that it crashed in the southern Indian Ocean. I'm Mark Mayfield.
Award-winning ESPN journalist Chris Mortensen has died at the age of 72. Mortensen's family made the announcement that he died Sunday morning. He joined ESPN in 1991, becoming a regular contributor to NFL shows on the network, as well as on SportsCenter. Mortensen was diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer in 2016 and stepped away from ESPN last year to focus on his health. And a team of scientists from the University of Queensland discovered what may be the world's largest snake. They've named the nearly 10 million-year-old species the northern green anaconda. A professor who led the team says one of the female anacondas they came across measured over 20 feet long. The discovery was made while filming National Geographic's upcoming series Pole to Pole with Will Smith.
WBSM Sports, brought to you by Sparks Auto in Dartmouth.
The Boston Celtics extended their winning streak to 11 games after blowing out the Golden State Warriors 140-88 at TD Garden. They visit the Cleveland Cavaliers tomorrow night. The Bruins visit the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight, and it's the Red Sox and Detroit Tigers in spring training this afternoon.
Now, your ABC6 South Coast forecast.
Starting out this work week with gray skies. This morning in the mid-40s with mostly cloudy skies as well as into the afternoon. Fog will develop, however, that could impact our evening commute. Temperatures in the upper 40s overnight tonight. Slight chance of rain. Partial fog once again, and the temperatures around 40 tomorrow. Rain and fog. Temperatures around 50. Be sure to watch ABC6 for my full 7-day forecast. From the ABC6 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Ceci Del Carmen on New Bedford's News Talk Station 1420 WBSM.
This WBSM News Update brought to you by Sparks Auto in Dartmouth, home of the $29 oil change. Your choice for auto repairs, brakes, and inspection stickers. Sparks Auto, 425 State Road, Dartmouth. I'm Phil Devitt for WBSM News. Stay up to date with New Bedford's News Talk Station, WBSM, and get all of our content and breaking news alerts with the WBSM app.
Easy
your day start off badly with that song playing, right? That's the song that I play to get myself pumped up and ready for the day. 508-996-0500. That is the number to call in and chime in here. And a lot of people were reaching out to me over the weekend, by the way, and saying, hey, I took you up on what you were talking about Friday, and I stopped by Gas Express, and I got that special one-day-only gas sale. And I also stopped in and got the special free bottle of Coke with crispy, crunchy chicken. And I probably had 7 or 8 people tell me. I had a couple of people Facebook message me, a couple of people app chat me, telling me that they tried that chicken for the first time and that they thought that it was phenomenal. So if you haven't tried crispy, crunchy chicken yet, inside Gas Express on the corner of Tarkin Hill Road and Belleville Avenue in New Bedford, you want to get yourself over there and give it a try. You'll really enjoy it. If you like fried chicken, it is the best. And I had someone tell me, and I won't reveal who, but let's just say it's someone who knows their chicken because their family might have been in the business and traveled around the country eating at places all over the world, all over the country, and called this the best fried chicken they've ever had anywhere. So come on. What are you waiting for? Give it a try. 508-996-0500. That is the number to call in and chime in here. Of course, you can also send app chat messages and open line voicemails on the WBSM app. Last week, we talked about the Dighton Police Chief search and the situation where the town came out and the residents expressed their opinion of what they thought should happen, who the next chief of police should be. That they felt that Acting Chief George Nichols had earned the right to be the full-time chief instead of the search committee wanting to bring in someone from the outside. That person from the outside was Fairhaven Police Sergeant Tim Souza, who, when he saw the meeting and what went on and heard the response from the police union and the residents regarding his selection as a finalist and their desire to see Nichols get that role full time, he withdrew his name from contention. And as I was saying last week, it worked out for everybody, probably except Tim Souza, who is probably disappointed that he's not getting this new job. But at the same time, who wants to take a job when you know that the town is against you like that? But it was making me think. We are on the cusp of some pretty interesting local political races coming up. Of course, tomorrow is the Massachusetts primary for the presidential election. So if you did not early vote, you're going to want to get out and vote tomorrow. If you are taking the Republican ballot, some of you are already planning to vote for Donald Trump, so you're going to vote for Donald Trump already. But some of you who were Nikki Haley voters, does winning the Washington, D.C. primary give you any hope? Do you go in and vote for her, knowing that on Wednesday she's probably going to be pulling out of this race when Super Tuesday doesn't work out her way? Clearly the Republican ballot is probably where the action is. If you are like me and you're unenrolled and you vote in the primary that you think matters the most. But does it matter at all? Has Nikki Haley just been prolonging the inevitable? Or does it work for you to say, well, a vote for her is a vote against Donald Trump, so that's why I'm voting for her. So it's a question you'll have to ask yourself when you head into the voting booth tomorrow. But then after that, we'll have local races that we'll start to focus on. And of course, as you know, Chris McCarthy on South Coast Now does a fantastic job of bringing in all the local candidates and speaking with them, getting to know them as people as well as their policies, and giving you all the information that you need as a voter. And then also, of course, having that be available as a podcast too. So if you aren't as tapped into the local politics as Chris is, it's okay. He's happy to bring you along and coach you up and let you know all the information that you need. Should be a very interesting local election season this year, in addition to the presidential election coming up in November. 508-996-0500. I'm going to take a break here, and we'll be back in a few moments. And welcome back in, 508-996-0500. We'll get right into the conversation with the caller in just a second. But Mike in Acushnet says Nikki Haley is only staying in the race until the Supreme Court makes the decision on Trump. If they vote to allow him to stay in, she will get out. Well, but here's the thing. You've got to convince people to keep giving you money to be able to stay in the race that long. And we're looking at what could be really months before they make that decision. So your hand might be forced depending on how many donations you actually get and how people think that viable you actually may be. 508-996-0500. Good morning. You're on WBSM.
Hey, what's going on, Tim?
What's happening?
Yeah, that guy, was it Mike from the app chat?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I heard exactly what he's saying in various, channels and news agencies. But just like you said, it doesn't take into consideration that she just lost a couple of weeks ago one of her biggest donors in the Coke industry. The Coke industry brothers, the Freedom for Growth or Project Growth, whatever it is, whatever project they have, they were funding her campaign. They pulled out. So her biggest money fund is gone. So if she's not bringing in money, she can't continue. Even if she wanted to, she wouldn't be able to. And being, Super Tuesday is going to drain her bank account significantly because you have so many different primaries going on at the same time. And the media ad buys are going to be exorbitant. You've got so many different primaries going on and she's trying to get out the vote. That's going to drain her bank account. And if she's not going to be able to replenish it, she'll have to pull out.
But on the
pull out of the race.
On the other side of that, if she does have a good showing in some states tomorrow, that might encourage some donations to do exactly what Mike is saying, to keep her in the race just long enough to see what happens. I think there are enough people who are nervous about what might happen with Donald Trump that they would be willing to keep another candidate in the mix, or at least have them have enough of a showing so that if she did pull out, say, in May, and they make this ruling in what they say the earliest it could come was, I think it was probably around the end of May, right? So, maybe this turns out where if she can just kind of hang around enough in the conversation, even if she's technically, quote unquote, out by that point, she might be the if they need to go to another candidate, she might be the logical choice because she has the most name recognition at that point and, the best chance out of anybody of hitting the ground running coming into a campaign late.
Yeah, and in a head-to-head against Joe Biden, Haley beats Biden hands down, not even a problem. And even SNL actually is starting to say that Donald Trump's going to win even against Biden, and that's an absolute fact because he is. I saw in the Wall Street Journal they're saying that people are starting to warm up to the economy, but they're not giving Biden credit, which they shouldn't. I mean, I've never been one to give any president credit for the overall economy, but that's politics, right? And politics, it's whoever's in power, whoever's got the presidency, gets blame and credit for the economy. And people are starting to warm up to the economy, but they're not giving him credit for it. So that it's not going to help him. Everybody is focused directly on that southern border and the implications on our own community, because it goes far beyond the southern border now. It's no longer a Texas, Arizona, New Mexico issue. It's a Massachusetts issue because we have it here, and it's that's what everybody's focused on. Nobody's even focused on the economy anymore. That's why Joe Biden's. I'm willing to bet he probably loses by 5%, 3 to 5% in November, and could possibly lose the popular vote. But like I said last week, I don't think the popular vote is going to be that high. I don't think a lot of these younger generation kids are going to stay home because they're not excited. The younger Generation Z, your 20-year-olds, they have to be motivated to go vote. They don't do it as a civic duty. They do it when they're excited about a candidate. They did it with Obama, and then they did it with Biden, but it wasn't that they were excited for Biden. They did it because they couldn't stand Donald Trump, and that's why they went out and voted. And I think that's what you're going to see again, but it's going to be you're going to almost have to eliminate the younger vote. And, that's obviously going to hurt Joe Biden, and it's going to help Donald Trump because a low voter turnout always helps Republican Party candidates.
But do you think that this kind of newfound getting Biden out there and having him be more in the public eye, is that going to help or is that going to hurt?
No, it's going to hurt. It's absolutely going to hurt because people are going to just continue to see how, cognitively in decline he is. He's going to do this stuttering, which isn't obviously a sign of cognitive decline, but it's going to correlate. It's going to feed that narrative that this guy is not all there. This guy is losing, mental capacity, forgetful. And the guy projects strength like, a wet noodle. The way he walks, everything that he projects is weakness, in my opinion. And the reason for that is just his gait. You just look at the way he walks. It's like he shuffles, literally like he's on his way to Brandon Woods, like he's going up the stairs. He needs help getting up the stairs to Air Force One.
Now,
regardless of his policies, he projects weakness.
Now, one of the concerns now is how much, Donald Trump is having these gaffes lately. And
right.
So let's just say we have two candidates that are both stumbling their way to November. Does one negate the other if they're both coming across as not all there mentally? Right. Does that make it more of a toss up?
No, it helps Donald Trump, and I'll tell you why. Like I said, low voter turnout helps Donald Trump, and when I say low voter turnout, the reason for that is your younger vote will not go out to the polls, which younger voters tend to favor the Democrat. But your older voters, your senior citizens and people in their 50s, they consistently vote, and they tend to lean more on the conservative side. So that'll help Donald Trump, and a low voter turnout historically helps the conservative, helps the Republican. So even though both of them are absolutely horrendous candidates for this country, Donald Trump comes out on top by probably 3 to 5%. And the reason is, and I've told Chris this, people tend to like his policies on the face, like surface. They like a strong border. They like a strong military. They just don't like the guy. They don't like his personality. So people are going to vote. If they're going to vote based on policy, it's going to be a landslide. If they're going to vote based on his brashness and his inability to empathize with people or really just be a diplomat, it's going to be tougher. But sure. It's going to be tougher for Trump. They're going to just the literal reason why he lost in 2020 is because it's not because of his policies. It's literally because he's so brash and undiplomatic, and he's so used to being a business person at the head.
Yeah, he's not
able to compromise. He can't compromise.
I got to hold you there because I got to take the final break. But thank you for the call.
You got it, Tim.
Have a good day. I do have to take that break. We'll be back in just a few moments. And we are just about out of time for this hour, but more with you coming up in hour 2 at 508-996-0500. You can also send in app chat messages and open line voicemails on the WBSM app. And we will be joined in the 8 o'clock hour by Jack Spillane of New Bedford Light, as we'll be turning on the light as we do each Monday. And, of course, taking your calls with Jack as well. Also, a little bit later on this week on the...
For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.